good. All right. Welcome to episode 104 of Convos in the Pedicab. I'm here with someone of a local celebrity, Jeremy Story. He's best known about 10 months ago. He actually got arrested for protesting at a Round Rock school board meeting.
Yep.
So I'm really happy to talk to you. Like, I think that we're having a huge problem with our school system. We're having a huge problem with what's being taught, how we're spending our money, the lack of parental involvement in our schools, and just the lack of open communication with government in general. So I'm really glad that you're here to tell your story and talk about it. Because this is not something that should be forgotten about.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and I met you I think recently, a couple weeks ago. I know you came and testified at our school board, and I didn't know you at the time, but meeting you about a week or so ago. So that was good to kind of get to meet you in person and see what you're doing across the state.
Yeah, I'm trying to do a lot. I think that ultimately we're in a situation where a lot of people's rights, a lot of people's liberties, a lot of what we grew up accepting and appreciating as part of what makes it great to live in America is starting to get taken away from us.
Yeah.
And you have I feel like everybody has a civic obligation to try to stop that.
Right.
And some people have more of an ability to make more of a difference than others because of finances, because of time, because of what they do for a living. And so I'm in a position where I have more of those liberties than somebody else. So, I feel like I have no choice but to take advantage of it.
Yeah, right. And to use, it seems like to me you're using parody and just hyperbole to sort of make a point in public forums of the things that people need to be thinking more about, right?
Well, it's just about holding up a mirror. The term is called culture jamming.
Yeah. Okay.
So basically, for decades, I'll say the left, I don't like using left and right, but the left kind of culture jammed an ideology onto us for decades without people really realizing it. Yeah. And then it comes to fruition when, 20-something-year-old kids are the loudest proponents of lockdowns and shutdowns and quarantines and wearing masks and whatnot. And so you're like, wait a minute. This is a product of what kids are watching and how their brains are being manipulated. Right. And it's very scary for the future of America. So you don't want the next generation of kids to grow up like that, but worse.
Exactly.
And so that's why there's really, I feel, a push to fix this in the education system.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you're being very effective, because I think it's a different way of approaching the same issue, where people are actually being able to see, okay, this is what this looks like, and it's crazy oftentimes some of the claims being made. And I think what was crazy to me is when you came to our school board meeting. When you came to our school board meeting, you were doing parody, but no one in the room realized that. They actually thought you were being completely serious, and to the point that the school board president literally made the whole room quiet down. You were saying some of the most crazy, audacious things, and the school board president made the whole room quiet down so that they could listen to you.
I talked about how we need to abolish the nuclear family. And that cuties on Netflix should be required viewing for our students.
That's right. Yeah. And she took you seriously and literally paused the whole meeting to make sure that everybody heard you, which it's one of the most poignant times I've seen in our school board meeting, where it was obvious where this bias of opinion is pervading the freedom of speech on these school boards. We're literally a couple people after you, literally I think 2 people after you, 2 or 3. Another gentleman stood up, and he began to speak about issues that were very pertinent to the school board, and they actually stopped him in the middle of his speech, but not so that everybody could be quiet. They stopped him so that they could debate for about 5 minutes on whether or not he got to continue speaking, because they weren't sure what he was speaking was, quote, germane to the issues at hand. And whereas they had let you speak about whatever you wanted, and even cleared the room. So, so you could speak. This other gentleman, who already his name's Dustin. He's gone through arrest, literally. We'll talk about him today.
We are going to, yeah. Okay, hold on one second. Hold on one second. This is important, but keep going for 1 minute. I got to actually take this call. I'm worried that my house might be on fire, so.
I can pause.
I can pause. Hold on. Okay, beeped again. Babe, I know I called the Blanco Fire, so they're going to have somebody there. Well, I called Blanco Fire Department, so they're going to come, and we're going to see what's going on. a clue. Probably not too long. I mean, it's Blanco County. It's not, like there's a million calls. It's not like there's a million things happening. Probably, I don't know. But I want to make sure the house is okay. All right. Well, just sit tight and wait for them to come, okay? I love you. All right. Sorry. Anyway, what were we talking about?
Crazy,
Yeah.
Feel free to take that whenever.
Well, I will. But anyway, I want you to keep going with your story.
Oh,
this is
about
Dustin, about getting thrown out, like him getting arrested.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, basically, the same guy who had gotten arrested by this school board for speaking out months prior, back in September, was this guy who they literally you came months and months later to our school board meeting, and they let you say whatever you wanted to say, and you said things like they watch cuties and
abolish nuclear family.
Abolish nuclear family.
If parents are, I basically called you and people. I basically called you and Dustin a white supremacist.
You called the whole room terrorists. You said that we were terrorists and white supremacists, and they just wanted to make sure that everybody heard what you had to say. And then 2 people later, Dustin stands up to speak, and they spend about 5 minutes debating about whether he actually gets to say something.
So isn't there like a court case about this kind of stuff, Jeremy?
Yes. You could not write this. It would almost be like a fictional movie, except that I lived it and you lived it that night. When you came to the school board meeting, it was the most crazy thing. Yeah, I mean, definitely. The beginning of the story is that in the Round Rock Independent School District, back in August of last year, of 2021, so not this summer, but last summer, I went to the school board meeting and I testified at the school board meeting about our superintendent, who had at that time a protective order against him for family violence, because a woman was alleging with very credible evidence and text messages and things where they had gone back and forth via text message that she and he had an affair for a while, and she was now pregnant. She got pregnant shortly after our school district hired him. He was just recently hired in our school district a few months before this incident, and she was basically saying, hey, I don't want to get an abortion. I want to have this child. And he was saying, you need to get an abortion. And this is all going on via text message. And when she would not comply with his wishes to get an abortion, he then issued a threat that if she wouldn't do it, he would come take care of the kid for her. And then she has evidence showing that he came to her house and aggressed against her, shook her, aggressed against her to fulfill that threat.
Jeremy, after what happened with Roe versus Wade, we need more abortion providers in the state of Texas.
Unbelievable. I mean, just to think about, this is a school district superintendent.
Who just pushed a pregnant woman down a flight of stairs.
He didn't do that. I don't think there was no stairs involved.
I thought that's what he did. I thought that he.
No, there weren't stairs involved, but he from what I understand, he came over to her house, demanded entry into her house. She let him in, which was a mistake, because he then got very angry, yelled, screamed, shook her, pushed her down to the ground. This was right after he had texted her saying that if she wasn't going to get an abortion, he was going to come basically perform an abortion on her. This is our superintendent. And this is what I brought to the school board. I initially brought it to them privately. I didn't you do your stuff in public, right?
Yeah.
I said, okay, I'll message you via email to talk about it. And 5 of the 7 members of the school board said, we're not going to do anything about this. This isn't an issue. We don't want to talk to you. I said, I got evidence. We don't want to see it. 2 of them said, this is a serious issue, and we want to do something about it. But what happened was the other 5 started basically keeping it off the agenda and trying to do everything they could to keep it out of a school board meeting, to hide it. Because they had hired this guy against the will of the community, against a lot of the community members, and they were trying to protect their own reputations and other agreements, I guess, that they had. I don't know what their ultimate motives were, but they were doing crazy things. Part of it was that one of them, at least, had actually, when this woman came to our school board prior to me, and she said, hey, I have a problem with your superintendent. This some things that are going on. I'd like to talk to you further about it. She did that. I've seen the email. She did it via written email, so it's documented. Some of those school board members, at least one of them, went and told the superintendent instead of addressing the woman. And it is that message of telling the superintendent that actually catalyzed the superintendent going over to this woman's house and aggressing against her, assaulting her.
So you have complicit school board members in this.
Right.
That's probably why they don't want to do anything. That's crazy.
Exactly why they don't want to do it. That and they've got somebody who's compromised, it's sort of a buddy-buddy system at this point. You protect my back, I'll protect yours.
Yeah, but school board members don't really get paid or anything, so what would these members...
All 5 of these school board members have gotten kickbacks, various forms of kickbacks. One of them, for example, her son has special needs. He has a mental illness.
Yeah.
And so she got, for her son, a pretty much around-the-clock, while he's at school, basically a assistant tutor to walk him through classes and to do things. This is not normal in our district. She is an exception to the rule. And in fact,
what's going on with his special needs? Because, I mean, that's not like a bad service to have if somebody needs it.
No, but the fact is that she got it and other people with special needs don't get it, right? In other words, she got special treatment.
For the kid.
For the kid. That I'm not against serving people with special needs. In fact, I have a son who has a mental illness as well.
But I struggle with a bunch of learning disabilities. I went to a really small school because of it when I was younger.
Yeah.
So yeah. Okay. So
but see, the thing is, I don't get that privilege, right? Because I'm apparently not on the school board and protecting and assaulting a man who assaulted someone. So, but if you do that, apparently, what happens is you get special treatment for your kids. So this is what one of them has that. Another one got a major robotics program pushed through. By the way, he has now resigned from the school board, this particular school board member. Another one, I could go through the list, but they've each gotten certain different kickbacks along the way as they've protected the superintendent.
Right, but you're not benefiting personally from a robotics program, are you? Like if you're a board member?
No, it was just sort of his pet project, something he really wanted to see go through. So he got the district to spend millions of dollars on a robotics program before he resigned the board. He just recently resigned.
Okay.
So you got all kinds of things that they're doing privately. And then the other thing is that people have to realize in this scenario is you and I are sitting here talking about it over a few minutes. But for these guys, these school board members, they were doing this piece by piece. And each time they would take an action, they thought they were going to get out of this. And so they're setting the hook deeper and deeper and deeper to the point where now they're unwilling to actually own up to their actions because they're in so deep. And that's part of the problem is that they have, first, they just drug me out of the school board. I went to the school board meeting in August to testify and saying, hey, you guys haven't listened. I'm going to say it publicly. The superintendent has a protective order against him. Well, before I could get that out of my mouth, the school board president yelled and said, that's inappropriate. You can't say that. Banged her gavel. And the superintendent kind of nodded his head like this. And before I even knew it, literally within seconds, 2 school district police officers came up from behind me, grabbed me by each arm,
I saw the video.
and drugged me out of the room.
Yeah, I saw that video. And then the next day they came to your house and arrested you.
Actually, not the next day. Not the next day. No, literally 30 days later, they surprised me at my house.
30 days?
30 days later. They did nothing for 30 days.
That is really petty.
30 days later. Do you know what?
Why did they wait 30 days to do that?
Because on the 29th day, I filed a legal grievance against the school district.
So they would have not done anything if you hadn't filed the grievance.
Well, it's even more than that because I actually filed that grievance at the beginning of September. They arrested us on September 17th.
Okay.
But when I first filed the grievance, they ignored it. And so I continued to message them over and over and over again, and then they sent me this email. We're sorry. This sounds like one of your parodies, but it's actually real life in our district.
Let's hear it.
They said, we're sorry, Mr. Story. Your grievance got lost in our spam filter, but we see it now, and so we'll consider it filed as of September 16th. And then September 17th, they showed up at my house to arrest me. They catalyzed the local sheriff to come and send 2 cars to my house, and then simultaneously 3 cars to a friend of mine's house, Dustin Clark, to arrest him. We were arrested as if we were drug lords, but it was just a misdemeanor. Literally, they...
And you spent the night in jail?
Yeah.
It got dropped, right, obviously?
No. They arrested us on Friday night at about 5 o'clock with the intent of holding us in jail the whole weekend.
Okay.
Because they were saying, oh, we don't have a judge, so we can't process you until Monday, right?
Yeah.
And so what has happened since then is, no, they haven't dropped the charges. They've continued to try to press these charges against us. The county attorney actually tried to put us in front of a grand jury for a misdemeanor. And so
misdemeanors never go to grand juries.
No, they don't. Right? This is the same county attorney that probably lets all kinds of major crimes get off or get plea deals. But for me, he had the special treatment of was going to put us in front of a grand jury. So we took that to the press, to the media, Dustin and I, and said, this isn't right. And so what happened was the county attorney, the Texas Rangers, the local police, they all absolved themselves and said, we are stepping away from this, and we're going to turn this over to the Attorney General to investigate. And the Attorney General in turn said, we're actually not just going to investigate these two parents because I don't think they think we did anything wrong, but we're going to investigate the whole district. So the Attorney General of Texas is now involved in this, and they're investigating the whole district.
So the Round Rock County Attorney and the Wilco County Attorney tried to get Ken Paxton to investigate you?
Basically, no.
And then Ken Paxton said, "No, we're actually going to investigate you guys instead." Like
it was more a little different than that. They basically said, "Hey, we don't have the capacity to investigate this. It's so big." And so we're going to give the Attorney General the opportunity, which is by law they can do that. The Attorney General can step in to take over investigations if local authorities are overwhelmed. And so all of our local authorities basically said, we're not going to touch this. We are stepping out of this. And there's a reason, in part, for the county attorney, because he has a major conflict of interest. Because in August, before all this happened, after they yanked me out of that school board meeting the first time, but 30 days before they arrested me, I filed a complaint with the county attorney.
For what?
Because I had been, under color of law, abused by police officers and the school board. And so I filed.
Because you were dragged out of the.
I was dragged off the stand while I was making public comments peacefully, which is unlawful.
That's unlawful. Okay.
Completely unlawful. It's a violation of your civil rights under color of law.
Yeah.
They basically removed me via force, drugged me out of a room for doing nothing wrong. And so, except speaking, which, by the way, in America is not a violation of the law.
Yet.
I mean, my crime was that I spoke, basically, and they were going to yank me off the stand. And apparently, this is the fun thing. Apparently this, like this, or banging the gavel, means to the local district police, take that man down and yank him out of the room, right? The point is that that's all that happened in that moment was the board president said, that's inappropriate, and she waved her hand and banged her gavel, and the school board the superintendent nodded his head. And from that signal, these cops got the idea that what they needed to do was grab me by either arm, drag me backwards out of the room. So here's the point. When we started looking later at the police reports, we found out that when I walked into the school board meeting that night, remember I'd been sending them emails, right? They ID'd me walking into the school board meeting. The police did. Why do you ID a parent that's going into a school board meeting? They actually radioed in, Mr. Story is coming into the school board meeting. They were prepping to do something to me. They were ready in case I said something. They were using the police to silence me, and they had a premeditated plan to do it. Because you can see it on the police report that nobody else got ID'd walking into the school board meeting, except for me. They said, Mr. Story's gotten out of his car, he's walking into the school board meeting like I'm some threat. And then, when I got into the school board meeting, they actually took a break during the school board meeting, right? Kind of like they took a break for Dustin. They took a special break for me, or they didn't say it was for me, but right as they take a break, the school board police chief, the police chief of the district, comes up to me. I'd never met him before in my life, and he threatens me. He privately threatens me. First, he says this. He's in plain clothes, right? So he has no uniform on. So I've never met this guy before in my life.
What did he say?
He says, Mr. Story, I need to speak outside with you right now. I'm like, who are you? You know, what? And he says, I'm the school board, I'm the police chief. And I said, well, with all due respect, I don't know who you are. I'll speak to you here in the board meeting, but I'm not walking outside with you. He goes, I need to speak with you outside right now, second time. And I'm like, no, sir. With all respect, I'll speak to you right here, but I'm not walking outside with you. It's just a dude in the suit that comes up to you. And so the third time he goes, if you, and he just laid into me. He says, if you do anything in this meeting, we're going to take you out. And I'm like, I haven't done anything. I'm standing here doing nothing. Why are you talking to me? Why are you threatening me? And he says, I said, other parents in this meeting, because it was a pretty contentious meeting, have yelled and cussed and some other things, but I've done nothing. Why are you doing this? And he says, well, if they do that, then I'll take them out too. I said, no, you don't understand, sir. You weren't, I guess, in this room, because he wasn't. He came in. He wasn't in the room when this had all happened prior. But you missed the fact that all these parents had done that. Why don't you go, they've already done that. Why don't you go talk to them? And what he does at that point is he just about faces and walks off. And I thought, well, surely this guy is not the police chief, because he would not behave like that. So next thing I do is I get on my phone and I'm surfing the district website going, is this guy for real? Sure enough, he was the police chief. You know where he is now?
Where?
He resigned.
Why did he resign?
Well, he resigned and then he became the police chief of a neighboring city.
Leander?
No, Hutto. So now he's the police chief of Hutto. And the assistant police chief, who I filed a report with against the police chief and who I asked to investigate and who refused to investigate, also resigned in the middle of all this. He resigned in, I think, May or June. So they both have resigned, and the school district has had to go look for a new police chief.
Do you have any say in terms of who the police chief is?
No, the school board's the only one that gets to do that. And you know what they hired?
Who?
Another guy who, best as we can tell looking at his history, also has a history in Florida of taking parents out of board meetings under police duress. Yeah. He was actually fired from one of his jobs for manipulating the police numbers. There was accusations that he had manipulated the police numbers to make them look better, and so they canned him. And so now we brought him in our district. You know why I think that is? Because I don't think anybody wants this job in our district. They're having a hard time filling it. Took them for a while to fill it.
Well, it's just because you have bad members. But
yeah.
How many people are running for like election and re-election right now in your board?
So what happened was 4 people were supposed to be up in November for election. And that was 4 of these 5 malfeasant board members. Okay. But one of the 5 who was not supposed to be up, the ice cream truck, one of the 5 who's not supposed to be up resigned. He suddenly resigned. His name is Jun Zhao.
Okay.
And so that means now that all 5 of these malfeasant board members are up. Their slots are up for election.
Cool.
And of the 5, 1 resigned. The other 4, they've all decided they're going to run again. So we have a showdown really in our district as to whether or not we want malfeasant cover-up craziness or whether we want people who are focused on education.
Well, a word of comfort, and it's that based on the precedents of how school board elections have been going throughout the state of Texas, it looks good for you.
Yes.
It looks good for you.
Yeah.
Also, when I went to that meeting, I saw a lot more concerned parents than I did woke activists.
Oh yeah.
The whole meeting is filled with concerned parents, and even though Wilco has gotten a little more purple, it's not gotten purple because it's gotten less conservative. It's gotten purple because a lot of these conservatives are just not very involved in their elections, and also a lot of conservative politicians don't really keep their promises to actually protect your rights or do what they're supposed to do. So that's also led to people with conservative viewpoints just staying home and not voting.
Exactly, yeah.
And there's also a ton of money being flooded into progressive organizing and progressive policies. And so they've been able to really fulfill that gap, especially with Donald Trump getting elected.
Yeah. I mean, it's been it's a confluence of that. Like, people feel like, well, if I show up and we elect people who say they're going to defend our parental rights, but then they don't, then you begin to feel like, oh, it's a bit fatalistic. And then you don't have those conservatives or even moderates show up to vote for those types of people. And then the people who want to take over our school districts and empower men like Hafez Aziz, our current superintendent, they end up winning those positions. But I believe, like you said in Round Rock, we see tons of people flooding those board meetings because they're tired of this, right?
Yeah.
And we used to see more and more the progressive side of people who were defending the superintendent. But what's happened is over time, it's gotten harder and harder to defend him. And it's just gotten so crazy that, fewer and fewer people are willing to do that in public. And so I think what we're seeing is more and more of people coming out and being bold to say this isn't right. And it's not just him, it's the school board itself. I mean, the school board, for example, let me give you an example. Just recently, the TEA, Texas Education Agency, they oversee all the school districts in Texas, okay?
Yeah.
I was just down at the Capitol watching Mike Morath and some others give testimony. He's the commissioner of the TEA. So the school board was required or very strongly urged by the TEA to hire an independent investigator.
Okay.
So that independent investigator, they ended up hiring that investigator. That investigator did a full investigation into our superintendent and all the issues we've been talking about on this show today.
Yes.
That person put in writing, this superintendent should not be reinstated. He should be basically fired.
Yeah.
Okay. And because they had already suspended him, and
but
she was saying
he will get fired. Like, I'm sorry for interrupting, but after these elections flip, if they do flip, he will get fired, right?
That's correct. If we can elect, I would say just people who are common sense people to our school board, and there are some great candidates who are stepping up to run. We have the opportunity to turn our entire school board back to just normalcy and health for our students. The current 5, they got that report back from that TEA person to show you what the alternative is. The current 5 got a report back from the TEA person that said, you need to get rid of the superintendent. And what they chose to do was to reinstate the superintendent, hide the report, and move forward. And the only reason why we know what the report has to say is because the Attorney General forced them to release it. And so now the report has been released. It's obvious that the TEA investigator said, hey, a TEA encouraged investigator said, hey, you need to let go of the superintendent, and that they did the exact opposite. And not only did they do it, but they used the lawyer of our superintendent, his personal lawyer, as a way to deceive the public into thinking there was nothing to see. So we can either go with those types of school board members who are now crazily deciding they're going to run again, or we can go with a new slate of school board members who will turn this around and see our school district and be an example to districts across the state of what it means to focus on education.
Yeah. I mean, my philosophy is that a lot of this wokeism and stuff, because I used to be a substitute teacher, okay?
Yeah.
I was a sub in Austin,
yeah.
sub in Hayes for a little bit,
okay.
right, before COVID. A lot of this woke stuff has been happening for decades.
Yeah.
This has been happening for decades. It's just that parents haven't been aware about what this stuff means.
That's so true.
And also a lot of conservatives have been asleep at the wheel since 1980. Yeah. Since Reagan got elected, almost a lot of conservatives have been asleep at the wheel.
Just assuming that
just blindly believing what you're told in the media, just blindly thinking that like just because I say a few conservative things, or I speak a certain way, or I go to church, or I do whatever I I talk about how much I love Jesus and brisket and football.
Right.
I'm a real American. Like I'm a real American and XYZ. Right. And
so true.
So like you'll just have you'll have extremely unqualified teachers coming in to teach your kids.
Yeah.
You're having breakdowns in the family through high divorce rates.
Mm-hmm.
Parental rights have been going away since the 1970s with no-fault divorces.
Yep.
Because when you have no-fault divorce, and especially if you're a grown man, you have no rights. You almost have no rights to see your own kids, no matter almost what the situation is.
And there's several cases in Texas right now.
There's a court for dads. Mm-hmm. You have judges that will automatically and blindly just side with the female or the mom no matter what the circumstances is, unless it's egregious. Yeah. So that breaks down families. You have media and whatever, and you have people working super long hours. You have single parent homes. So you have people that are just like raised by the media,
right,
constantly, right? So you have that, and then you also have like you have teachers who don't really care about whether or not the kids grow up to be responsible adults. They just are like, oh, we're rule followers and we teach the test, and all of these things combined have led to
I think
this. Do you know what I mean?
And I think on the teachers thing, that's the one that really kills me the most. Or of the students is horrible. The teachers is worse. It's in a lot of ways because you get people that go into this profession. A lot of people that go into it, most of them, I believe, go into it with good intentions.
Yeah.
They want to, because you don't go into it make $1 million, right?
Well, you go into it because something funny though. What? When you're 65 years old, like teachers, like the top 5, is one of the top 5 professions. Yeah. Where you retire as a millionaire after 65 years old.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Yeah. Because of retirement, benefits. People will be more likely to take on side jobs. Teachers are more conservative with their money, so they'll kind of like invest more conservatively and just let the money build. So a lot of teachers actually will retire as millionaires by the time they're like 70 years old. Huh. And then you factor in these parental laws and the divorce laws. Right. And most teachers are women. Most teachers are, especially at least when I was in school. Yeah. And even when I was like subbing a little bit in Austin, like a lot of teachers that teach like elementary school are usually like hot blonde sorority girls. Okay. Do you know what I mean? Like, you ever think about that, right?
I haven't, actually. I can't say I have.
Okay. Yeah. So like go through one of these elementary schools. I mean, how old are your kids?
Well, I have kids that range everything from 11 years old to 23. I have 7 kids.
What? Fuck yeah, dude. Way to be a biological success.
I can't say that I've gone through this.
Way to not believe the climate agenda, Jeremy. Way to go, baby. Way to go.
I have not gone through schools evaluating teachers from that perspective. I'll put it that way.
Okay, but the point being is that like you have a lot of like very attractive younger female teachers who wind up teaching elementary school and middle school and even possibly high school, right? And so usually like, a lot of teachers will have wedding rings in their finger and they're young. And so it's like, well, you're not marrying pedicabbers. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like they're marrying guys who are doctors. No idea. Usually, like it's like, especially if you're living in the suburbs. Yeah. You're probably marrying somebody with a good job, and then if you get like your money lost in divorce, you all of a sudden get half that guy's stuff, and like, oh yeah, look, it adds up. I'm a millionaire now.
I don't know about all
that. That's all. I mean, we're going off track a little bit.
I would just say my intuition is that, and
I'm dropping a fun fact that completely deviates from what we were talking about.
My intuition is that teachers, most people go into it with good intentions, desiring to help kids, and your average bottom line teacher, not so much the higher level administrators. A lot of those are malfeasant. Not all, but many. Superintendents all across Texas are getting indicted for different things, but I would say a lot of these teachers. They just want to teach. They want to do well, but they get stuck in a system that actually disincentivizes them. De-incentivizes?
It disincentivizes.
Yeah,
yes.
Them from actually achieving educational goals. They spend all their time filling out paperwork or dealing with all kinds of SEL type stuff or all kinds of stuff that's being fed to them from these school boards. And really what they want to do is just educate kids.
And there's the pettiness from other teachers.
Yeah.
And when you have more and more PC culture and PC guidance, someone might spend a whole bunch of time focused on one small little microaggression that you did, and if that happens to you like a couple of times, you're like, man, why am I doing this? I'm not doing this. This is ridiculous.
Exactly. I think a lot of them they get fed up with
lack of experience. They also need to restructure like what you need to qualify to be a teacher.
Yeah.
And I personally think that you should have you shouldn't be allowed to teach kids until you're at least 30 years old.
I have no,
seriously. Like, you shouldn't be allowed to be a school teacher until you're at least like 25, 30 years old.
Yeah.
And you've had like 4 to 10 years of experience actually having a real job.
Well, I mean, one of my thoughts. I don't know about that.
What do you mean? Like, you're teaching kids to be successful in the real world, right? Like, the purpose of being a teacher is to help mold children to become successful, happy, well-adjusted, responsible adults.
I agree.
Part of that is holding onto a job, paying bills, having happy relationships, having financial independence, having all of that. If all you did was go from being in a classroom to working in a classroom, how much experience are you really able to like provide the future generation of children in order to actually become happy, successful, healthy, well-adjusted adults?
Well, my feeling is
you know what I mean?
And similarly to that, but I don't know about the age thing, but I've always felt like, why not just have some sort of we sort of do have this, but we just say, okay, we're going to get you a license, but get your degree in whatever you want to teach. If you're going to teach biology, get it in biology. And then if you want to teach, then get a degree, get a license. We just put on top of that, right? Rather than encouraging all the teachers to quote go to education school, because I don't feel like that's very helpful for them. I think maybe a few classes might be needed to navigate the education system, but when you literally get an education degree, I don't think that's helpful for our teachers.
For high school and for middle school, yes. For elementary, it's broad because you're teaching every subject,
right?
At a very watered down level,
right? Yeah. What I find is that our colleges and our even like TASB, Texas Association of School Boards, and some of these teachers unions, but in particular, in different ways, they are basically brainwashing teachers, molding them into these patterns that then affect our school district.
Well, it's not so much molding; it's about who they pick. So you know that I wanted to be an elementary school teacher when I first moved here.
Really?
Yeah.
And they wouldn't let you?
Well, I'll tell you the story. So, when I was in college, I used to. This is a longer story, right?
Yeah.
It's like a little tangent, right? But basically, when I was in college, I used to keep a little diary every time I came home from the bars, drunk as fuck.
Okay.
Okay. So I kept a diary.
All right.
And it was like incoherent, and it was basically like you're talking about like the girls you slept with, you're talking about like what you did at night and XYZ, and you're writing it hammered.
Okay.
Right? So yeah, typos, misspellings, some misogynistic comments about whatever happened. Like
that would be a problem.
Okay, right. I get it. That's fine.
No, I mean in terms of your future. If you
let me finish.
Okay.
Right? So I wrote this, and then I wrote like sober commentary between entries, and I published a book. Okay. I published an actual book called Dear Diary and Wasted. I wrote it a long time ago. Right. And at the time that I wrote it, I really thought like, yo, considering the stuff that's being put out right now.
Yeah.
And considering the complete utter garbage that is popular music.
Right.
I got a bestseller in my hands. I can make a ton of money from this. So I published it. Right?
Yeah, right.
And then nothing worked out. Nothing happened. Nothing occurred as a result of it, right?
Right.
Except, you're just being stigmatized as the guy who wrote this stupid book.
Right.
So I'm like, all right, well, I'm going to. So I was in New York. I was living at home with my mom and dad.
Okay.
XYZ. Hold on, we're gonna pause this because I gotta call my girlfriend real quick. But we are gonna continue the story because it has to do. It ties into what I'm.
No, I get what you're headed. Yeah.
Hey, babe, what's up? Is everything okay? Well, I guess call them back if it keeps beeping. Well, I can't do anything right now, but call them back if something happens. Or ask the neighbor for a ladder. All right, love you, babe. Anyway, so my house is not on fire.
What did they say?
There was some like CO2 smell, but it's nothing like crazy.
Oh, crap.
It's nothing
Really?
like super crazy. They said there was like something, but it wasn't
Yeah.
anything. That's gonna warrant a fire. Like they left. Like they're not there anymore.
You need to get like a carbon monoxide detector in your house. You know what I'm talking about? They're separate from fire things.
Where can I buy that? Like Home Depot or something?
Yeah, Home Depot. I would highly recommend that for you on your drive home.
Yeah, I might have to do
because
that.
it's because that's as you know odorless, and it can kill you in your sleep. so you definitely want to get a carbon monoxide detector. They're the same price as fire. In fact, a lot of the newer fire extinguisher fire detections have both in them. They'll have CO2 and smoke.
Oh, good to know. I probably will do that. I was gonna try to work tonight, but I'm like, maybe I should probably do that and not die.
Yeah, I don't know. That's what I do. I'd spend the $20 and just make sure you wake up in the morning.
Yeah, right. I'm not trying to get suicided.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I mean, I'm laughing, but seriously, I encourage you to.
Yeah, thank you. Okay. Anyway,
Go
let's
spend
get back.
the $20
Okay,
on the CO2.
So let's get back to the story, right?
Yeah,
so I wrote this
right.
book. Nothing happened, and I figured, okay, well, things weren't really working out in New York. Like I wasn't really doing anything or amounting to much of anything.
Yeah.
And I was living at home with mom and dad as someone in their mid-20s. So I just said, it's time for a fresh start. Let's go to Austin.
Yeah.
Okay. And so I went to Austin, and I figured, like, I'm not gonna whatever happened in New York, whatever I was doing in New York, whatever I thought, whatever my outlook on things is, it's staying in New York, and it's never coming back here.
That's
okay?
right. Yeah.
And so I got a job at like an after-school program right away.
Okay.
Abacus School of Austin, which is in Williamson County.
Right.
Okay. Right. And so then I also found out about pedicabbing a couple months later. Right. And so then, like, while I was at Abacus, I found out about the Region 13 program to go teach with the alternative certification. I didn't know that could happen.
Teachers,
okay,
right?
so I got in.
Yeah.
I got in and made it into Region 13. All right. I made it in. I did well in my classes. I got really good recommendations from like the ladies, from the owner, the director at Abacus. I got great recommendations from the person that I student taught with. I was I started subbing in AISD, and I was like taking jobs whenever I could, almost every day, and only teaching elementary school jobs and really trying to teach an actual lesson to prepare myself for the next year to like network and meet people and get interviews.
Right.
Okay. I had like 15 job interviews that summer.
Yeah.
And I did really well on probably like 12 or 13 of them.
Yeah.
All right. And nobody hired me.
It's unreal because we're at a desperate teacher shortage right now.
Nobody hired me. Like I was giving students like I had like job charts, I had color charts, I had a whole organizational platform for how I was gonna like teach my kids, because I was really big on like wanting, our kids to grow up to be like healthy, happy, well-adjusted grown-up adults. And you want to know something funny is like a lot of these elementary school kids from when I started are probably high school kids are about to be done with high school now.
Yeah, right.
But I never got hired. And nobody ever told me why I didn't get hired. They still let me sub, but nobody hired me to actually be a teacher. So once that happened, I was like, I'm not taking subbing seriously anymore. I'm waking up at like 10 o'clock and taking whatever job's available and making sure I still get paid a full day. Right. Because fuck these people.
Right. They're not willing to do it.
Yeah, you completely played me and took advantage of me.
Yeah.
So I have no willingness to want to like really help in any capacity, right? B, the students are a lot nicer to me when I just am a chiller teacher versus me trying to teach them.
Right.
And so you're paying me the same anyway, so what's the point, right?
So you're a perfect example of that kind of not incentivizing people who are actually trying to really focus on teaching the kids.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it's easier to kind of pull back.
I used to go on Tinder and Bumble when I was subbing and just swipe and just meet chicks. Like that's what I used to do. I used to literally substitute.
That's probably not a good idea.
Well, I mean, they're all grown up. Like I was like going and looking, like they're all grown ups. I wasn't like talking to students,
Okay.
But I would go on Bumble. Like I would just go on like these apps. I'd go on Bumble and go on Tinder, and I'd be like, yeah, all right, kids aren't doing anything. Like just do your work, be quiet. All right, cool. Like, by the way, I was like everyone's favorite sub too.
Okay.
I was everybody's favorite sub because I'm like, hey, as long as you're in a seat and you're quiet, you're working really hard in your assignment, we're gonna have a great day. All right, we're good. All right, excellent. So like then I'm like, all right, I'm like just got out of a relationship, like wasn't really doing too much, had some pedicab money, had subbing. I'm like, all right, well, let's go on Tinder real quick and move my finger. Let me see. Oh, she's pretty. Okay, cool. Let's and then that would
probably make it hard to get hired as a full-time teacher.
But I couldn't get hired anyway because of that. Like, I couldn't get hired. Nobody gave me a reason. Yeah. I probably suspected it was because of that book.
Yeah.
No one ever gave me a definitive reason.
I have a friend who actually tried to go into a college in another state who was talking to me just the other day, and he said, I actually wanted to get an education degree, and they actually filtered me out of the program even though he had straight A's. And it was because of some of the conservative stuff he had written. And they weren't interested in him pursuing beyond just a bachelor's degree. He wanted to get a master's degree, and they wouldn't let him have it.
At that school, at the university.
At that school, so he had to end up going to a different school and go to and get an education.
So anyway, this is what it circles back to, Jeremy, right? Yeah. So I understand like why I never got hired to be a full-time teacher. Like I get it. But I did my best. It was something I wanted to do, and I really tried to like go that route. And I would have been perfectly happy teaching kids and like giving pedicab rides on Saturdays.
But they basically just told you,
and they told me without telling me. And so you can imagine how I feel when years later a drag queen who's a sex offender is coming into an elementary school reading to children, but I can't teach because of something I wrote.
Total double standard, right? I mean, total double standard.
You can imagine. Like, dude, you can imagine how mad I am at this situation.
Yeah, absolutely. I get it. I mean, it's a total double standard. This is the thing, and whoever's watching this podcast, people pull on the heartstrings and they'll say, oh, well, it's all for the kids. We just need more money. More money will fix everything. Or it's all for the kids. Let's just implement this program. But the reality is it isn't about the kids for a lot of these folks. And underneath it all, it is an agenda oftentimes that is trying to basically change the direction of our future by changing the hearts and minds of our children. And they couch it in just sort of simple education terms, when in reality, behind the scenes, these things are going on. So you go to Round Rock Independent School District, and you listen to our superintendent. He's talking on and on about, different things, but he doesn't ever mention that what he's doing in his private time or the way in which he bullies other board members or other things like that.
A lot of very rich guys in finance and Wall Street also donate lots of money to these CRT and SEL programs.
Yes. I assume so. I don't know about that.
No, that's it. Like Bill Ackman has donated like billions of dollars, I believe, to or hundreds of millions of dollars or something to like a whole bunch of like CRT based identity politics wokeism in New York.
And I actually spent some time in New York myself.
Yeah.
I lived there for
I grew up there, man. Yeah.
I lived there for about so much less than you. I lived there for about 6 years.
All right.
And you probably know this, right? In New York City, in the education system, they have these rooms they call them romper rooms. And what they are for teachers who have been accused of pretty serious things.
Yeah.
And rather than fire them, they can't, because the teachers union has got such solid contracts, they can't fire them. They have to go through these lengthy investigative processes. And I don't mean like a month, I mean years.
Yeah. All right.
And so what they'll do is they'll put these teachers, they can't be in the classroom, so they make them go sit in a room like detention for years, sitting in the room, getting paid full-time salary. This is going on in New York City right now. By the loads. There's tons of teachers in this category. And they'll sit in this one room. They go and they report from 9 to 5. And then they check out. And it's basically daycare for teachers who are under investigation. And many of these teachers have been there for years, waiting for their trial or whatever it is to come up. And they're of course free to go and come, but they're being paid to basically be babysat. And they go in, they surf the internet, whatever they do. You can go look this up in New York City. It's a common practice. And it all stems from people who don't care about kids, they care about agendas. And it stems, in this case, from the teachers' unions that are more concerned about protecting the teachers than they are about getting good education for the kids. And they couch it in terms of the kids, which is just evil, if you ask me.
I think so. That's why it's a blessing. Like, I look at this like a blessing in disguise for me, because like if I just gotten hired to teach, I would have taught, I would have led a mediocre life. I would have been okay with it,
Yeah.
Right? But because of everything that happened, now I'm like amped up and extra motivated to really do something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I would not be doing what I'm doing right now today to this level.
Yeah.
If things just worked out the way I thought they should have worked out. So anyway, it's a testament to like God working in mysterious ways and things working out mysteriously is like kind of how I look at it.
I mean, we I'm a follower of Jesus,
well,
right?
I'm a Jew, so I mean, but still, like you got like, and
so
I'm not like a religious.
I follow a
person.
Jewish
Yeah,
man.
there you go.
I believe a Jewish man was God. So,
all right.
So hey, I mean that's
cool.
pretty
all
intense, right?
Yeah.
So, and so and Jesus taught that same sort of a thing that often God guides us in ways we weren't expecting, right? And we think this is going to be for our benefit, but in actuality, he takes something and steers it. You think about the story of Joseph, right? Out of the Hebrew scriptures.
I don't really know the story.
Okay, story of Joseph is this guy gets basically sold off by his brothers, right, unlawfully to some foreign slave traders. Ends up in Egypt, right?
Okay.
And in Egypt gets put in jail, but by being falsely accused in Egypt. He was serving one of the higher level leaders in Egypt, gets falsely accused in Egypt, gets put in jail, accused of going after someone's wife that he never did. He ends up spending years in jail, helps and ends up basically rising up to become a co-leader of all of Egypt underneath the Pharaoh. And he ends up basically saving Egypt and the Jewish people at the time from the famine in the area, because he instructed through prophetic revelation from God that there was going to be a famine and they needed to prepare for it. So he ends up being put into a position where he can prepare for that famine, but it all came through a series of painful experiences in his life. He thought his life was going this way, but then God took his life this way and used his life in some great, crazy way that he could have never expected, because you wouldn't have thought this Jewish kid in a total other country would end up being second in command of Egypt. But God used these pathways that weren't the usual pathways to actually put him into the number 2 person under Pharaoh.
Yeah, people also, do you think, like, totally off topic though,
yeah,
do you think people back in ancient times when like the Bible was taking place and the Torah was taking place,
yeah,
do you think people like used certain plants and certain things that was grown in nature to kind of help them find what their vision was by God as a form of guidance?
I would say I'm sure that people all throughout history, God has created all of creation to be used by men and women for our benefit. But everything in God's creation, this is of course way off topic we're talking about, but everything, it is in some ways on topic.
Well, it kind of is, right? It is kind of is on topic though.
Yeah.
Because people demonize, like right now, especially
Yeah.
like a lot of like a lot of the old school religious people. I think
Yeah.
now it's getting better,
Yeah.
right? But when I was like a kid,
Right.
when I was in high school, you had like a lot of religious conservatives and people who were super Christian that were
Yeah.
like, oh, they were all about say no to drugs and this and that.
Right.
But like some of your favorite biblical heroes were definitely under some kind. We probably took some kind of substance that helped them hallucinate that image that they were seeing. It doesn't mean that the image isn't real. It just could mean that the substance that you took helped expand their brain to see that image.
I don't know if that was true.
Is that
I know
like,
that
you know what I mean?
Joseph claimed to be receiving revelation directly from God. There's no reference of any sort of chemical inducement to do that. You have all these people like Elijah and others who were seeing visions, revelations from God. But I would go back to the creation story, and I would say that there are tons of things that God created that he wants us to use, say as medicine or as things to treat and all that. And anything, like say, I assume you're referring to like marijuana or something like that. There are
mushrooms, like
there are medicinal uses for something like marijuana, but then there's also abusive reasons for something like marijuana.
Of course.
And everything in God's creation is that way oftentimes.
like coffee too. Coffee
right.
too, yeah.
It can be used in such a way that it benefits men and women, or it can be used and abused in such a way that it actually brings detriment.
Yes.
And so I think God called us as stewards from the date of Adam and Eve onward into his creation, and he began to give us rules and ways that we can steward his creation in a way that it blesses people instead of a way that it brings cursing to us. So because God, I believe, created, and I believe this from the Hebrew scriptures,
Okay.
right?
All right.
That because God created all of the earth, I believe he knows how best things operate, and so he wants us to utilize this whole creation. But I don't drink because I don't like the taste of alcohol, but it's no problem for people to drink, right?
No.
But if you drink all the time, you can get to a point where you die of liver cirrhosis or whatever.
Well, and
so
also
it's
you're
sort
just
of
not. Also, it destroys your happiness. Like there's
Right.
like there's
So
here's a problem too with the schools also.
So it's a good thing
Well,
that can become a bad
okay.
thing, is my point.
Right.
Right.
So here's I think what a lot of teachers and a
Yeah.
lot of people miss out on when it comes to guiding kids.
Yeah.
And it's that it takes hard work and discipline to be happy.
Yeah.
And a lot of times people think that being happy just means doing something that like literally makes you feel happy now in the moment.
Yeah.
But real happiness actually involves structure and discipline, because I
Yeah.
think real happiness lies in making sure your body's clean and your body feels good. Because
Yeah.
you can't be happy if you have heart failure and you can't move. You can't be happy
Right.
if you're like obese and you have to like and walking to the bathroom is a struggle.
Yeah.
You know, like you can't be happy if you have if you have like self-induced diabetes,
sure,
or if you've had like 3 heart attacks by the time you're 75,
yeah.
like it's a lot harder to be happy when that's happened. So I think happiness lies in like loving your body. Part of loving your body is putting good things in your body. Happiness lies in like loving your friends, like having people that you know care about you no matter what, and that also means that you have to have the discipline to like avoid cheating on your girlfriend,
right?
Or you have to have the discipline to avoid like, maybe stabbing someone in the back because you think that person is cooler than you or something like that, right? And like it lies in accomplishing things.
Yeah.
And when you accomplish things, you have to be super like generally speaking, unless you're like a freak,
right?
You have to have discipline.
It's true.
To accomplish things, and I think that like that gets lost in how kids are being taught.
Yeah, I agree. And this does take us back to education because if you look at the foundings of our country, at least, and the foundings of education in our country, it was the Judeo and the Christian heritage that emphasized education in our country. Flat out, whether people like that or not, it's just the truth. It was where education got originated in our country. Originally, it was pulled up via private entities and beyond. And we've sort of we've taken all of those, the value and virtue out of it, and tried to create some sort of virtueless passing on of facts, which is what you've said several times in this interview, that doesn't actually work. You can't divorce the idea of virtue or ideas from content. It doesn't work. There's no such thing as virtueless content. You're teaching some sort of value, right? And this is part of the problem, is that we've believed that we can sort of feed kids information without any sort of values going with it. But the fact is that in such a vacuum, somebody will fill it. And what we're finding today is it's getting filled with all kinds of other craziness, right?
Well, so when I did my Region 13 class, a lot of the people that wound up getting hired were just like these like, it was like these like very like, in most cases, it was just like very like weak, very like emotionally unstable, very like unsure people with like, who had like clear self-esteem issues, lack of self-confidence, lack of drive, left-wing socialists were pretty much like what I would see when I'm going into schools. And you see like a lot of teachers are like socialists, like have socialist and communist ideologies. And then like whenever I would
they got most of it from the university they attended.
Yeah, I know. Well, whenever I would also what gets shared on Facebook and social media.
Right, yeah.
And like whenever I would go to speak at Austin, there's always like some union or group of teachers, and you could just tell they're all like DSA affiliate. Like all these teacher unions and teacher organizations are all DSA affiliated. It's gonna have some problems.
Oh, it does.
It's gonna have some serious. It's gonna have some very serious problems.
Yeah, and the Supreme Court just said this. What we're talking about is backed up by the Supreme Court now, because you had in the 70s Lemon versus Kurtzman, which basically said, look, you can't do anything in schools unless it, quote, has a secular purpose. It has to be somehow valueless, which is impossible, right? But then that's become so untenable that just in 2022 we had a case, the Johnson case, where the Supreme Court said, no, we're overturning Lemon versus Kurtzman, and this idea of pursuing just
with the football guy praying on the field, right?
Exactly. What it basically did is it overturned. They went beyond just the football thing, and they said basically you can't divorce value and virtue from teaching.
Right, but you also shouldn't be like forced to impose your religion.
Exactly.
Like if you're a super Christian, you have like some Jewish kid in your class.
Exactly.
Like, you can't be like saying that you're going to go to hell. Because I've had people tell me that I was going to go to hell because I'm a Jew. Like I've had a couple people tell me that stuff, and there's no place for that either. Or like if let's say like you're a practicing
By the way, I
Hindu,
think that's
like
really interesting because the central figure of the Christian Bible is a Jew.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense.
Actually, not just one Jew, but like a whole bunch of Jews.
Right.
Paul,
but
Peter.
like let's say I was like a practicing Muslim, right? And I was still living a good, virtuous, happy life. Like that's cool too. Like as long as you have purpose and you have a connection to a higher power.
And in our country, you have the right to believe
and you have that
whatever
right.
you want.
So like, I think people are scared that they're gonna like, you're gonna have some Christian zealots that might take those other rights away. And I think there's got to be like people like you just got to say, nah, we don't want to do that. We just want people to be in touch with their higher power that they believe in.
The First Amendment guarantees the free exercise of religion, right?
Yeah.
And the ability for the government not to interfere with that free exercise. Yeah. And that would be true. And in order for me to have free exercise of religion, I have to respect other people's
people that have free exercise. And I think that's got to be like, you got to drum that in. That's got to get drummed in too. Like, just because they're going to these people will put a bunch of crazy stuff out of context in order to scare people into voting Democrat and stuff.
And to create this valueless idea,
Yeah.
So.
But you know what I think they got to do? Like, 5 minutes, 2 minutes?
Like now. It's been an
All right. Well, all right. Well, anyway, Jeremy, how do we get a hold of you? Because we could do some bonus stuff about
Sure,
this.
absolutely. Right. One way that people can jump on our case is riseforstudents.org. RISEFORSTU students. Y'all know how to spell that. Riseforstudents.org. You can go to that website and you can give to our legal fight. We actually have a civil lawsuit against this school district that's going to set precedent across the state.
I might be featured in the court case, by the way.
That's right.
Yeah.
He actually is going to be probably featured in the court case. We did not intend that, but he showed up to a board meeting and he basically, through his activism, showed how our school district is completely AWOL and why our civil rights case is valid. And so I'm glad, we weren't coordinating that at all, but I'm just glad that you did that because it is going to be featured. But you can jump onto that riseforstudents.org. You can give to the legal case. Not a dime of it goes to me. Every bit of it goes to fighting the legal case against the school district. They're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars to try to defend themselves in these actions. And so that's one way they can help. You can also see the case there. And a lot of the stuff we've been talking about, including the videos, are on riseforstudents.org. And so people can see all that information there. And they can even go to the lawyer's side who's fighting it, and you can see from the lawyer's perspective what's going on. All of that information is there for you for free. Just we want to be transparent so everybody can see what's going on. And so you can also take this to whatever district you're in, and you can know what your rights are moving forward.
Yeah, all right. Well, hey, what's your Twitter handle? What's your Instagram before we go? So we all know who you are.
I actually don't remember my Twitter handle, to be honest.
Oh, that's probably why. Okay.
I am on Twitter, but I spend a lot more time in the Facebook world right now because that's where a lot of the people are that are influencing these things. You can find me on Facebook. You can find me on Twitter. You can also find me on Instagram. Right now, I'm totally blanking. Maybe it's just been a long day on what my handles are at each one of those, but I do have followings on each of those, and you can find me there. It'll be under Jeremy Story. In fact, I'm pretty sure that Twitter is just Jeremy Story. Same thing with Instagram, Jeremy Story as well.
All right.
You can find all of it there.
Cool. Hey, Jeremy, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. This was
no
super
problem.
informative.
All
Keep doing what you're doing, man.
Thank you.
All right.